Hey, Shabbat Shalom, fam. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dibble to dabble in my days. I'm gonna let this play one more time, and then we're gonna jump right in. Um, Being led, y'all had us go ahead and switch over to this platform for things for here on out type of thing. Less of a lot of things for real, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm gonna let this play one more time, and then we're gonna jump right in. All praise. Great to see everybody coming in. Shabbat Shalom, fam. Shabbat Shalom. Excited for another one. And also, I could get some music in there too. You know, learn about these copyrights and things like that nature over here. But yeah, this is more so my avenue. All praises. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just waiting now. I was over here doing things and putting things in order in advance. We're gonna jump into that for surely. For surely. It's yeah, it's like that. It's like that. We're gonna talk about Issachar. A whole lot going on with him. But all praises. If you want to open up your books, your Bibles to let's see, Genesis 49. We're gonna be in verse to 14 and 15. And then of course the testament of Issachar. And then we're gonna touch in Judges, and we're gonna end in Sirach, I believe. I think that's the way we're gonna go. Well, yeah, another Shabbat Shalom, another day of rest to come and be with family. Bring the campfire over yonder, as we say. But yeah, grateful that everybody could follow us over here and get ready for another one with a whole lot of meat and a whole lot of meat on there. All praises. Got some Hebrew character too. I'm gonna see how all this plans out. See how all this goes. So y'all kind of see what I'm trying to say. Let's see how I say. All right. All right, Armand. All praises, all praises. We're going ahead and mute that. All praises. Yeah, grateful to have everybody come together. We're going to open up with some prayer, then we're going to jump right on in. Shabbat Shalom, fam. Shabbat Shalom. Let's jump on in, and we're going to get to swimming. Armand. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Armand. Abba, we come before you today just to say to die for another Shabbat, another time to come together in your word, in your presence, to learn more about what you have for us as we observe, as you've led me to show what I've observed with you as in my personal walk with you. And may that be encouragement for others to do the same as we're out here doing this work of you. Again, honing in on this agricultural walk and really how great and how impactful you move in my life, and that is shown to others, and may it be a willing testament to your work and your power. Asham Yahava, Asham Yahashpai, Asham Ravakakwadash, Aman, and Aman. All right, fam. So today, we're in a different place. Same work, same everything. Along the lines of the message today, are you able to or willing to sit in anxiety to receive the message? You know, are you willing to sit in anxiety to receive the message in full? In full. And I was over here marinating on Issachar, and had, let spirit just kind of walk me through places and different things on the avenues that she has me to see it. Not the only avenue, but the avenue she had me to see it, right? Um, and those that might be able to see, I'm gonna start testing this out. But on the there was a picture. Here you go, of Issachar, right, and a donkey. I was led to use that as imagery because this is an agricultural walk, and we talked about this before, like everything being agricultural, how the seeds are planted, things are rooted. We're gonna go into mandrakes today a little bit, and that was kind of cool to dive into that. There's a whole lot with the agricultural walk, right? And as I was, working with Ravak and walking with Ravak through this, it was talking about discernment and wisdom, where I was led to hone in on, and staying in the work fully. Because if you don't stay in the work fully, if you don't willing to not make it, willing to make it not a fight, as we talk about, make it, don't make it not a fight. Don't just see things as vain at some points of time. And even with this, because last week we weren't thrown off schedule, but kind of, hey, Salam, sis, Salam, what's going on? We weren't thrown off schedule, but we were led to rest in this, right? Because it gets to a point where if you're doing something like this, or if you want to, give the word and things like that in different avenues, and you it becomes more like a burden more than a work. You end up thinking that you're doing things for the people versus doing things for Yah, and just letting that marinate. And I went running. I left a couple testaments on here. Went running and stuff like that, and just let Yah talk to me about things. And one thing that in school, I was in this thing called mass communications, right? And that's dealing with like teleprompters, movie editing, commercial making, camera work, Photoshop, video makers, stuff like that. And I was, just marinating on that. And I'm looking at this, and I started looking at these lights in the room, right? On the little whatever you call it, the chest drawer or whatever. And I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the background, and I see this great blanket Big Brother made me and sent me and stuff like that. And I'm looking at it and looking at the background. I'm like, that's something great right there. And I'm letting it marinate some more and letting it expound because, you know, oftentimes you feel like you're getting out of a rest season really quick, and you feel like you're missing something, and you just sit there even more and just let it expound and let it become what he has for you. You know what I mean? Go with what he has for you. um this is a time to really see what farming entails. In a way, farming entails two things. It entails discernment and wisdom. Now, discernment and wisdom, this is where you can get instability from. If you don't use enough discernment, it throws off your wisdom. If you don't use enough wisdom, it throws off your discernment, right? And those two things, those two hands remind me of the character of Kaf, right? For those that know Hebrew character, Psalms 119, we're about to get into that a little bit. Now, Kav, K-A-V, if you want to write that out, right? Yeah, textures and layers, yes, sir. So you got Kav, right? And this represents two hands in a way, right? It represents two hands in the middle, or holding, basically like that, right? Let's see if we get to that one. Yeah, like in your Kav. Because we're going to talk about a whole lot of Jacob, right? And you see that Kaf right there? And you got two lines like that, and two lines right here. And those are going to be the hands, right? And that's what's in the making of a lot of things, is the hand and what's coming from that. And those two hands are discernment and wisdom. These are the two hands that help me put into scripture to see what Yahweh really is doing, what Yahweh really is working with and working through with his ultimate discernment and his ultimate wisdom, the things that he gives us, right? And that really goes beyond farming equipment, because that's just the flesh. It involves balancing short-term needs with long-term needs, and gauging the rhythms of nature and those textures and those layers like Ak was talking about, right? That's that discernment and wisdom. Oftentimes you have to wait and change plans based off of weather and the soil, right? All these things with the making of the hands. In farming, you have to distinguish between temperature setbacks and serious problems, right? You have to allow yourself to believe in what you're doing first before everyone else can see what's actually going on. This is your season of growth, right? Don't make it not a fight, because oftentimes you get to a place where you can't see, nobody else really can see, but Yahweh knows. So you got to really trust and go with them. even when you're not in a season of doubt, not in a season of worry, not in a season of maybe this, maybe that, maybe you're in a pretty okay season, but in that season you're still looking for something. That's that wisdom and that discernment. That's that farming aspect of it. And speaking of Yakab, because right now with what's going on and seeing like what I'm seeing with all this, it gives me a thing of calling it in my bag. For those that know, I'm in my bag, and what that is, like, what you mean by that? Like Jacob, I mean Jacob, Yakab, right? And this is where it got kind of cool. Before we go into the testament of of Issachar, and then we're gonna go in a little more deeper. But right here, we have Yakab in Hebrew character, right? So we go right to left. It's all Hebrew characters right to left. So we have Yad, Alav, Alav, Kaf, Alav, Ba'ait, right? And everything is coming from, of course, you can reference that with Psalms 119, Alav, Alav, Tot, or Tet. That's like a wisdom, basket, wisdom, whatever like that. That's what that is. But we got Jacob, Yakab. We got the Yad, Alav, Alav, Kaf, Alav, Ba'ait. So the righteous direction of the Father, right? And that goes through a head or a source. There's two right there. Some could put that two into one to really have one character right there, but I put two there for a reason, right? Because it made me think about, even before I got in too deep, I was writing out the character. I was like, well, we go right to left, as we see when we're writing out character. We go right to left, right to left. So I'm looking at the alav, and I'm like, well, did I write that backwards? Thinking about the works of the hands, and then realizing, going deeper on that, no, I didn't. If you look at the alav right up here up top, this is where I get the in my bag from. It's just marinating with Yah, right? And you got the vision. That's alav. So over here, there's an empty space, right? On the right side going to the left. We go right to left. On the left, there's a centering point. In between, there's a parallel line connecting two points shooting out, right? So it's the vision in the thing that's going on here with Jacob. It's the vision of the Most High directly to an access point of connecting two things, right? Of wisdom and discernment in one full aspect of flow, if that makes sense. So that's what I mean, more so of Jacob being a season of in the bag, and all these sons' names and characters and everything like that. It leads to a definition or a defining of ways you could use things in life, right? So depending on what situation you're going through, depending on who it is you're around, depending on what's going on in life, you got these sons. And the background of this, where we're coming from with Jacob, right? With Yakab, we got the Yad, we got the Alav, Kaf, Alav, Ba'ait. So out of the hand of the Most High comes a time where the vision is from him directly into the works of the sons, of what's going on in the times, actually, too. The Kemet and everything like that, the Nile River, the power struggles. We'll go more into that in a little bit, too. But in this place where Jacob is coming from, with the vision of the Father going through the works of Jacob, or the works of wisdom and discernment of what Jacob sees and what he's predicting for his sons, right? And that ending to be the righteous house, that being the bag that we can reach into to use things for, according to life and their practices. So it's even to a point where we could say that with character, there isn't a thing of not being able to figure it out, not being able to figure out what's going on. You see, with Jacob, he was coming up with all these sons being born. He was still in the house of Laban. Laban, he had some problems with idols and paganism and many things of that nature. So when these sons are being born, they're being born in a place where there's struggle of righteousness and wickedness. Jacob being sent over here by his mother to find his wife, which he found Rachel, and then ended up with Leah, also Zilpah and Bilhah, right? All this coming together for a reason. So when Jacob had AYSAKHAR or Issachar, there was a place of having a need of discernment and wisdom with the things going on in those times. Remember last week we talked about Asher as well. Asher had relations to a pagan idol, right? Also coming from the house of Laban. If we look at Issachar, there's another one, Sakhar. There's another Kemetan idol, right? We're not gonna go too deep into that because obviously not too important. But there's another idol of named Sakhar, and Sakhar is a very mischievous idol, things like that. So with that being in mind, with Jacob and everything like that, with him seeing all these things, fighting against these things, there comes Issachar. Now we're gonna get into the testament of Issachar, and as we're reading through, we're gonna stop through a little bit, but not too much. But then we're gonna go into Hebrew character on that as well, and kind of dive in even more so with this, right? So we're gonna go to the testament of Issachar and really dive in and really get into what we're seeing about these farming um mindset, the agricultural mindset. It's Shabbat Shalom, everybody coming into Shabbat Shalom, right? Yeah, I got you right there. All right, so we're gonna read the testament of Issachar, and we're gonna see how this blooms out and really see where how Ravak had me walk out with this. It's pretty cool. So we're gonna start at the top. It says the copy of the words of Issachar, for he called his sons and said to them, "Listen, my children, your father Issachar give you ears to the words to him who is beloved of Yahweh. I was born the ninth son to Jacob, by way of hire for the mandrakes. For my brother Reuben brought in mandrakes from the field." And we're going to stop right there and talk about these mandrakes. Now, mandrakes, they are, for those that don't know, it's a plant, right? And these plants were seen for fertility. They were also seen as a sign of, they actually look pretty humanized too at the root. And they grow in stony areas, rocky areas, open sunlit areas, right? We're gonna set all this up. And mandrakes, let's see, I got a picture of them to kind of help go with it. Don't want to get nothing too crazy looking, but and those that seen some movies when they came up, it kind of reminds me of I forget the movie now, but it kind of looks like this, right? You see how the roots look kind of human like over here, and they look kind of like you can kind of see the face on it, the hands and stuff like that. So at that point, right, what I'm getting to is at that point there's a place of mandrakes, and mandrakes still being in a place of where Laban is staying, right? So right now they're at a place of a crossroad, a either or crossroad, a place of seeing mandrakes for what they're used for, but then they also used for wickedness as well. They have knowledge of that too over there, right? Right, yeah, there we go. Harry Potter. That's what I was thinking about. There we go. To the, but yeah, you see how there's two things right here. There's wisdom and discernment. There's a way to see these things in a positive way and a negative way, right? And also at the same time, this is Reuben seeing these mandrakes. So let's set up the settings all together. So we have Leah, right? So we imagine like a valley or something like that, a hill, right? But in a rocky place, we have Leah watching her children because at this point, Rachel didn't have any children. It was Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah at this point, right? But it's still everybody's still over there with Laban. And Reuben is off playing, off playing by himself. Reuben, as we remember, has a problem with getting caught up in the trance of nature, right? So as all this is coming together, Reuben has a problem with the trance of nature, and he sees these mandrakes, right? Mind you, Jacob is seeing these things as well, noticing what's going on. All this is going into account of what he has prophesied for his child, right? Now that we're in the Jacob bag, now we're in the Issachar, seeing what Issachar has for us after we've been through, Reuben, right now to Issachar, right, all the way through, and he sees these mandrakes. He's off there playing, sees these mandrakes, takes the mandrakes, right, and now these mandrakes still looking humanized a little bit. Now, not getting too deep, but still looking humanized a little bit, and still looking like still actual herb, but they could be used for different things. It could be manipulated, right? This is a thought thinking process. This is a part of now am I seeing things in life as vain? Am I seeing things in life as righteous? Am I missing something? Am I not sitting in this long enough? Did I not go to my cocoon for a long enough time? Right? Do I feel like giving up? I feel like giving up. Well, that's not being single faced. That's wanting to stop. You know what I'm saying? That means I'm missing something. I'm not seeing something that has a purpose over here. Right? So Reuben grabs his mandrake, says, "Oh, mommy would love these mandrakes. Why would that be?" Right? Why would he think that? Because obviously he's grabbing these things. It's being sought by, being seen by Rachel and Leah. Right? He'll be taking them to, right? Still being raised around Rachel, still being mentored by Rachel, but still wanting to take them to Leah. Right? And mind you, connecting that Leah in the beginning of all this, Leah was involved with, we'll call it the plot. Leah was involved with the plot of Jacob, Rachel, and all that stuff, and how he ended up wanting to marry Rachel, but ended up with Leah, and then with the maid service and stuff like that, right? Seeing all this stuff happening before, all the way up to now, right? So all, including all that, still these mandrakes are being brought to Leah, right? Fertility wise, because she wants children too. She's giving up her maid and thing like that. In the process, there's a gap there. There's a connecting there where we talked about Naphtali, we talked about Gad. These are all recorded on here too. We're not gonna go deep into that again, but we talked about that and how this message is supposed to be carried swiftly, right? It's supposed to cut through the wind to go to whatever vat or whatever container it's supposed to go in. But sometimes it gets stuck at the shores with ashing. But then sometimes it gets stuck in the grounds, right? Not just the way of the flow of things, but the way of things growing, the way of things setting in. And then this also happens to be all surrounded by a root at the same time. You see how this kind of it unfolds, it gets to a rabbit hole, because now we're talking about roots, right? Not the movie. But now we're at the roots part. And these roots looking humanized and stuff like that. So, the innocence of a child, right? These things are already there, getting caught up in the trance of nature. And with the name Sakhar, or Issachar, or AYSAKHAR, sometimes with the Yao and stuff like that. We'll get to the characters in a second. But with this root, there's a problem with the root of a thing. So with all this coming together, there's a root of a thing. Now this root can be seen as something that's herbal, or it can be seen as something that can cheat code a thing, right? But are you missing what it is? Are you enduring the labor for what it truly is? So what labor truly is a work. But will you endure the whole work of seeing the whole thing thereof, right? There at that point, there to that point, there of that point, who, what, when, where, why of that point. If you didn't, why did you get up from the table so soon? You know what I'm saying? It goes to the root of a thing. Issachar was one for the root of a thing. Even now, Genesis 49 and verse 14, where it talks about the blessing, right, on the sons. And he says that Issachar is a strong donkey, crouching between two burdens, right? And these mandrake roots, they usually have 2 points at the bottom, right? These are sometimes represented as feet, seen as feet, sometimes like that. But cross between two burdens, a place of seeing where rest is needed and a place of seeing where work is needed. Issachar is the nation where they weren't behind. They actually got props from Deborah for holding down their weight when it came to the promised land. Where they settled in at was also the shores and things like that, place of fertile ground, right? Verse 15 of Genesis 49, it says, and he saw that rest was righteous in the land and it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute, unto what comes out of a thing, knowing when to rest, knowing when to get up, knowing when to stop, knowing when to go. But this is all, again, a mental thing of making it a fight. A lot of times we can hear that and it sounds like something we want to run away from, but we got to make it a fight. Even last week to this week, last week, we didn't miss, but we just did something different. But even to this week and letting things blossom, actually have a time to like take a break from work and let things blossom into something like this. You know what I mean? Something more relaxing, something more setting, something more proper for season. Because again, in farming, you got to know when it's the right weather for certain things as well, for everything like that, right? enduring all that there is to labor. In every season, there's harvest. I'm gonna go over here to Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, and then we're gonna go into Issachar's name and character, and then we're gonna go into the testament. But we see now just how deep this really is, and really just keeps me thinking about that donkey, right? It's that resting spot. Rest is a commandment, right? Right. Yeah, steady production, because if you keep going steady, you are steady producing, even in rest. Rest is still work. Rest is still work. When you're walking in traffic, you could be walking and cars can be driving on the road, but you're still moving in the same direction. It's still motion. It's still righteous. It's still prosperous. It just depends on the vision. Again, with that alive, and you have that space on the opening at the end of looking to a point. You're looking to the left side of a thing, right? And on the right side of the Father, we know where that is. That's the word, the left, obviously, and in the whole, that's Abba. And that's the point. And then that line that goes across those two trajectory lines, the 2 points of wisdom and discernment, the inside, that in between line being the battle, right? The thought, the thinking process, the connection. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, rest is still work, and then it's like something like we keep getting to it, and it's like we keep hitting this point, we keep hitting this point, we keep hitting this point, but we're supposed to. This is a real life thing. This ain't just let me plan out 4 or 5 different weeks of things and put it all together and make sure I go by this syllabus every single time. No, there's a general work of a thing, but then things just kind of naturally happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a thing that it naturally happens pretty much, but that's what you got to have that point, like looking at that, and then we're gonna get into now we're gonna put it all together actually before we go into Issachar. So with that alive, right, we're gonna go back to that. Where that one at? Here we go. So that alive, right at the top, right? Now we see what I'm talking about. On the right, that little circle, that's a space, a gap, or a mind. You're looking to the left side because we go right to left in Hebrew character. So from the right, that circle, you're looking to the left, the power of the Father. And from the Father comes 2 points, wisdom and discernment. That middle part right there, that's the battle. This is the vision. This is Allah. This is the righteous direction of the Father, being nailed to the righteousness of the Father. This is the bag, And in that bag, you got your cob. And from the works of the Father, all the references of Psalms 119. But from the righteousness of the Father comes the 2 points of vision. Your own vision, then the vision of the source. And from that vision of the source, now you got the right way to hold things from the Father for the righteous household, i.e. the 12 sons. You see how it all comes together. So character really makes it so that there's no such thing as not being able to figure it out wherever you are, right? So that's Jacob. Next, we're going to get into Simeon and Issachar, right? Right, there we go. Right, there we go. Now we're going to get into Simeon, or Samion, or Shamayon, and then we got Issachar. So, those that are familiar with the book of Judges, right? Judges talks about Deborah, mighty Deborah. And since that name came up, we're going to go ahead and drop her out there too. we went through characters for everything. Let's see. And then we're going to keep talking about Deborah. All right. Here we go with Deborah. So we got Dalat, Alav, Bait, Resh, or Rosh, right? So through the door of the vision to the righteous household, to be their mindset, to be their point, to be their kingdom. That's the rest. That's what that represents. The mindset, kingdom, will, thought, 20 also as well in numbers. But this is what's going on with Deborah, right? So it's a very powerful judge through the door, knowing the door of the proper vision to give to the righteous family for the kingdom, for their mindset. Obviously, for some reason, Auntie Deborah, I got it on Deborah, but Auntie Deborah, she was the one that you go to for a lot of things. She has it on point, and she said this about the census that they carried. In the beginning of Judges, it talks about those being able to clear out the wickedness in the land. And out of everybody, it was Simeon and Issachar Those two nations were the two ones that did a great job at cleaning up things, right? So in my mind, before we get into the testament of Issachar even more, I thought about Simeon. I was like, okay, we got to do the characters, Simeon, and we got to do Issachar. We got to do that, right? Because these two things, these two processes are the two things, obviously, that you're going to need that was undefeated, because these things in the past naturally happened for us supernaturally to be able to see them in the future for lessons, right? Just like the naming of the sons of Jacob. Not just that it's not a fairy tale story. It really did happen, but there's messages that we can see in that now if we know character. That's why like I'm really liking this setting, because we're able to do character way better, way more calmer, way less distractions, but ain't throwing no more dishes at that platform. But let's see. Yes, Issachar and Simeon. Here we go. Here we go. So we got Simeon or Samayon, right? So we're going right to left, and we're at the name up top. So from right to left, and I have my phone turned sideways. So if you haven't figured out by now, you probably gotta do the same. But so we got, sometimes I see it as Sheen or Shine, Shayn, or Shayan if you want to write it all the way out, or I'll see it as Samek to start it out, right? So either way, through destruction, which is Sheen or teeth, the gnashing, the chewing, the processing. Samek or Samache is the seed planted in thorny grounds, right? We're at Simeon right here. So the seed planted in thorny grounds, because the vision or the image or the learn from the in-between thing for the blood, water, and spirit, through the two vision again for perfection or maturity and perfection, right? Issachar, sometimes we see it with the Y, AYSAKHAR. That just means the righteous direction of the Father, right? So you could throw that in there, or you could not throw that in there, whichever one. But we have the righteous direction, which is the image planted in the thorny grounds to be worked in the hand for our protection, right? For kingdom, or for head, a process, for mindset, right? So these two things, right? These two things are the two processes that Deborah said in their senses that were the proper ways and held up their end to keep out the evilness or the wickedness from their land. What we can see in common is the seed planted in thorny ground. But what we really see, remember I was talking about the middle thing. We see the mem and we see the kaf, the blood, water, and spirit, and then we see the work of the hands, right? These two things being very important. Really showing us the process of how things really work. We really could figure it out, right? So in those seasons of things, and when there's doubt, worry, stress, things of that nature, we can see that there's a what's going on is that there's a seed that's planted in a thorny ground, or there's a seed that's planted in deep ground, grounds that have to be watched, watered, tilled, things like that, to bring forth an image, right, or bring forth a goal, or a mindset, or a thought, to be worked through the blood, water, and spirit, to be worked through your mind, to be your gift. And that comes with being able to look through the vision of the Father and going back and forth in that process to be properly matured and to see the perfection in the thing. Seeing the perfection in the thing is being able to see things as not vain, being able to see the purpose in all things, right? And Issachar, straight to be in the image, coming from the working of the hands, and this should be a wall of protection for your mind, right? That's those two processes. One process leads to the other. Simeon came before Issachar. We could line that up too. We could literally see how things go from beginning to end, to the point of now we're at the essence of a thing. We're at the essence of getting the message, the essence of being able to see past the trances of nature, to be able to praise properly, to be able to see the law, apply it to our hearts and walk with it, right? But then we get into those seasons where it's required for us to till and harvest, right? Because in the beginning, we are now supposed to be able, or now we have to till the land. That also reminds me of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, right? Now we have to till the land being the process, the mindset, right? We gotta, instead of us just knowing things going on, knowing the right way, now there's a little bit of a blur. Now there's a knowledge of good and evil. Now there's a knowledge of righteousness and wickedness. Now we're able to see the good things, but now we're able to hear the bad things as well because of that fruit. No, we surely won't die, but now that we have the process and knowing the process of what would kill us off. You see what I'm saying? So with that, now we have to till the ground. Now we have to really think about these things. Now we have to really connect these things. You see how that goes in not just the natural, but the metaphorical mindset, supernatural, the super in the natural, not making it something crazy, but Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. Let me find that real quick. Because that popped back up. Yep, it says, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven, under the Shamayim, under the mindset. So there's a purpose to everything in proper season. So one thing has a time period, but in that time period there are seasons. In that time period, you got to know when there's a season of death, and there's a season of fruit. There's a season of tilling. There's a season of watering. There's a season of dryness, right? Outside of the promised land, we could go over there for that metaphorical connection. We could talk about the expecting the miracles of the wilderness, but that no longer being the mindset once you cross over the Jordan into the mindset of promised land. Now you can't expect the miracles of the wilderness to happen in the promised land. You've got to be able to put this thing together and work it out. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to hold it together, hold the fort down, But yeah, in every season, there's a time and purpose to everything under the mindset. There's a time and purpose for that. Sometimes it's cloudy. Sometimes it's like, yo, I can see it, but I just can't see it. At the same time, it's like, yo, I know it's right there, but it's not just there. It's like, I know exactly what I could do right now to fix everything right now, but I shouldn't, because that might be a little too much for right now. I might turn up the heat too much on this pot, and now it's going to boil over. A lot of times I got problem boiling eggs because I'll sit there and I'm like, yeah, I could just turn it down low and I'll be fine. I can walk around and do my thing a little bit, but water still boils. Water still evaporates. You can't forget about the process just because you're doing something else. And you think, you should have enough time to do it. But sometimes you could burn boiled eggs. You could burn water sometimes, as they say, But yeah, just praise Yah for the timeliness of this, because it's a whole lot of growth going on, especially in the times now, and trying to figure out, seeing the things, not being affected by it, but just seeing like, okay, obviously it's a better time to start growing your own foods. It's a better time to try to, get your own land, to get together with people and stuff like that, and start going back to the way things were in the Bible days, because it was it's a given example for a reason. Things would be way more simpler. We were naturally agricultural people. But sometimes over time, like we could see with Leah and these mandrakes with Reuben, Slakia, we could see that sometimes these things that we know of, these agricultural ways still being grown in places, right? We could see them in two different ways. We could see them in wickedness and quote unquote potions and the fragments of what these fallen angels and messengers have made them to be, or we could see it for the whole thing. So remember that before we didn't have to till the land, before we just knew, knowing that sometimes when we sit there and we have those thoughts, that those ones that just don't make sense, that it's still out. It's still Yah, it's still something that he could talk to you about, because there can't be no thought that he doesn't know. You know what I mean? He just wanted us for at one point to not have that problem, but at the same time, what thing is better than having a choice to choose the right direction? You know what I'm saying? So with these things, he gave us Jacob, he gave us the bag, he gave us the Allah, he gave us the vision, he gave us a process of even how to do it. Yes, easier said than done. We can look at it on the paper and be like, oh, okay, cool, but it's really a thing that we can actually use, and I find that pretty cool, and that made me even more passionate about Hebrew characters. So I could talk about them things all day. But we're also going to read. So go back over to Testament of Issachar. Now that we talked about those mandrakes and everything like that, right? putting that all back together. Let's see. Verse 4. It said, "For my brother Reuben, or Rav Bond, remember the same one that had a problem with the transfers of nature. My brother Reuben brought in mandrakes from the field, and Rachel met him and took them, right? And Reuben wept. And his voice, and at his voice, my mother Leah came forth." So again, with that setting, Reuben's out there, chilling, la da da da, see these mandrakes, grabs them, boom. Rachel's like, "Oh, I know what those mean. I've been around my father's house," or altogether, really, I know what those mean. That they're good for fertility. They're good for different things and ailments of the body, right? Rachel took them, and Reuben wept, and at his voice, his mother Leah came forth. Now these mandrakes were sweet-smelling apples. That's the fruit that came from this, right? Which can be we're gonna cover the mistranslation method, right? So when you're reading and you're at a risk of mistranslation, right? Don't be wary of that point. Keep on tilling the ground. So we can see that the two apples, that's like a correlation of what they talked about in the beginning in Genesis, Shayat, right? They talked about the fruit being the apple. This could still be representative of knowledge of good and evil. Those mandrakes presented two apples, knowledge of good and evil. We can see those roots being used for good or righteousness. We can see those roots being used for evil or achaval, right? Or wickedness, right? So we keep on going. They were produced in the land of Haran, below a ravine of water. And Rachel said, "I will not give them to you, but they will be to me instead of children. For Yahweh has despised me, and I have not borne children to Jacob," or Yaakov. Now there were two apples, and Leah said to Rachel, "Is it enough for you that you have taken my husband? Will you take these also?" And Rachel said to her, "You will have Jacob for this night, for the mandrakes of your son." And Leah said to her, "Jacob is mine, for I am the wife of his youth." Right? Because remember, Leah was being a little petty right there. She's like, "Well, Jacob's mine. Technically, he married me, right?" But Rachel said, "Do not boast." Like, you know what you did. "And do not vaunt yourself, for he espoused me before you, and he served our father 14 years for my sake. And had craft not increased on the earth, and had the wickedness of men not prospered, you would not now see the face of Jacob." Right? Basically, like, if these wicked spirits and stuff like that didn't come down and mess everything up, this wouldn't even be a thought in our mind or a thought in your mind to pull something like that. That was wrong. But that also affected her mind, right? Now with that little jab, not the little jab, but that little side note we talked about with Sakhar, right? Egyptian deity. This one was known for craftiness, right? And with Issachar being born in this time, and with that name being off played in there, obviously this was a thing that was over time, right? These idols, these false gods and stuff like that was over time in Kemet or Egypt, right? So this one I'm talking about is representative of the one with the falcon head. That's the one of Sakhar, right? And this one was also crafty and everything like that. So when it says in verse 11, "And had craft not increased on the earth, and had the wickedness of men not prospered, you would not now see the face of Jacob." Not just back then, right, with everything going on, but even to now, because that being the thing that was still, Laban was still knowledgeable of this. Laban still had, or Laban still had, one foot in, one foot out, right? These mandrakes and everything like that, mind you, still on his property, right? So these things were still used in many different ways, right? You still got the children running through these fields. You still got the children seeing these things and these statues and these I don't want to say tanksters, but things could be used for wrong things, right? So they're seeing all of this, and this is what's being come from it. Now we're arguing over a thing that's rooted in a place where it's iffy, right? Generations to generations, exactly. You got, this is what comes in, and all this comes in the work of Yaakov, the kaf, the wisdom and discernment. Oftentimes in research, we can see that they talk about Jacob actually being the voice, the direct voice of hearing these things, because it's so trippy. I use that as a slang term. It's so trippy how he is able to see the future for the children, but also be able to see further than that, for things for us to see for our lives. This is like a renewing word. It never It's constantly renewing. It never gets old because everything could constantly be applied to life. So when we're talking about this stuff and we're talking about the culture, people get um ran off, quote unquote, because it's not explained for what it deeply is. It's deeply rooted. We can even see that all the way down here. It's deeply rooted, these things and these issues. To be able to explain it on such an agricultural way is the way that even here, when he was talking about Issachar, and he said he's a donkey, right? Realize he's the only child that was actually said an image of an animal too, right? Even at the same time. So seeing this and seeing the humility and seeing that everything really specific for that time, right? Yeah, it travels down for generations. You gotta let it out, gotta put it out there and show these things, even with the mandrakes. So I looked at that and I'm talking about the Harry Potter. I was like, yo, like I seen this in a movie, and this looks, even looking at the Egyptian idols and stuff like that. But it's stuff that, it helps you make sense. It helps you let people know this is like a real society of ways. Like they were really around a whole lot of wickedness. They're not so different from us, you know. So these things and things that they seen, even with Leah and the children, it came with the thing of the children, like snatching flowers from a child. That's a lot of anger. You know what I mean? Um, the innocence of a thing, to be that angry about something, a lot of influence, but yet a place where something so great generationally, everything revolved around the nations, the sons of Jacob, the disciples, the the discipleship was based off of everything that they went through, right? Even more than 12. There's still more. The sons of Jacob, not, we're not gonna mix all that up, but you see the correlation, how we could easily mix that up. You know what I'm saying? So we keep on reading. Chapter 2. It says, then a messenger of Yahweh appeared to Jacob, saying, Rachel will bear 2 children. Inasmuch as she refused company with her husband and has chosen continency or abstinence, basically, right? And had my mother Leah not paid for the 2 apples for the sake of his company, she would have borne 8 sons. For this reason, she bore 6, and Rachel bore 2. So that even with a grain of salt, because I was like, yeah, that is cool how that played out, but then it's like I don't know, but we can still see in that essence that 2 fruit, the knowledge of good and evil with the place of wisdom and discernment. We're mixing that together. What comes out of that, right? 2 different messages that needed to happen, right? Depending on the mixture of things, the man and the woman, the masculine and the feminine and the masculine, one not being without the other. Also, in this time of Issachar being born, there was a lot of high influence in the Nile and stuff like that with Kemet going on over there. There's a lot of increase in idealistic ways. There's a lot going on. So that fruit in that land, a lot comes from that. Even we are what we eat. That coming up in there too. But let's see. Yeah, for this reason she bore 6, and Rachel bore the 2, for on account of the mandrakes Yahweh visited her. For he knew that for the sake of the children she wished to company with Jacob, and not for lust or pleasure. For also on the next day she again gave up Jacob because of mandrakes. Therefore Yahweh listened to Rachel. For though she desired him, she did not eat them, but offered them in the house of Yahweh, presenting them to who was the priest of the Most High at that time. So boom, we can see Rachel took the mandrakes. I didn't go that too far for a reason. She took the mandrakes and the apples from the fruit of that thing, but did not use them for a quote unquote potion. She used them and gave them up as a sacrifice. So even the possible wickedness of a thing, right? First thing in Rachel's mind was probably, oh, I could use this for infertility reasons, right? Right, you see? Like they're trying to influence the thing even then, you know? But yeah, she took that. Rachel still knowing of the wickedness going on, still knowing of the different tinctures and stuff like that. Laban being again deep into that type of thing. So with Rachel taking that and thinking, hey, I can use that for this because I probably do know the potion and things like that for this, but I shouldn't do that. right? I should just give this up towards, even to the high priest at that time. Again, input of needing an intercessor at that time. I'm saying Yahweh at this point, but there's still some more stuff going on and stuff like that. But we're not gonna go too deep because that's sidetracking. But yeah, we can go all the way back to reading. We can go all the way back to reading. Let's see. Yeah, gave to the high priest of the Most High at that time. Yes, there's an intercessor there required. Basically, was that point. She gave them to the high priest, whoever that was at that time, in the order of Zadok, Malachi Zadok. Um, Even because at this point they were still children, so the nations being birthed from them literally didn't happen, right? So putting the natural time in essence of things, Rachel did the right thing. In the place where the root of a thing, she could have went two different ways, right? And we could put the Hebrew character in for Rachel there too. But we keep on reading, chapter 3. It says, "When therefore I grew up, my children, I walked in uprightness of heart, and I became a farmer for my father and my brothers. And I brought in fruits from the field according to their season." Right? That's a deep salat right there. "And my father blessed me, for he saw that I walked in rectitude before him." So that means a straight way, a straight path, single-mindedly, right? "And I was not a busybody in my doings." That's a salat. Not getting caught up in the anxiety, being able to sit in the anxiety to know and to hear the whole lesson of a thing, right? Not running away from anxiety, not stretching out the process, but you're still gonna have to sit through it anyway. And anxiety is just meaning putting your hands on things that you have no control of. That's what anxiety is. So thinking about that cough again, even in Jacob, with the verse of the hands, and the hands to the plow, the tilling, the pulling up roots, things like that, the snatching from a hand of a child. All these things is meaning something in the process. You see, breaking down scripture, it goes deep. It goes deep. "I became a farmer for my father and my brothers, and I brought in fruits from the field according to their seasons. And my father blessed me, for he saw that I walked in rectitude before him, and I was not a busybody," meaning I knew how to slow down, right, "in my doings, nor envious and malicious against my neighbor. I never slandered anyone, nor did I censure the life of any man," basically taking a census of it or taking account, right? Yep. And yeah, keeping a direct line on your life. A lot of times we could get ourselves thrown off because we look at a point of even in scripture sometimes, right? We can see what happened in the thing, right? But we still got to remember it applies to our life in different ways. Again, we all have the same issues, right? We all get the same problem, and that's a quest. That's a seeking the in between thing. That's that ion of figuring out what's going on in the thing, right? We all get that, and it all comes out in a different way. But we must be able to get that line in sight. We must be able to see what it is for us. And sometimes, even with scripture, it applies to us differently. As in, when we read something, I'll see something. Sis might get something. Ak might get something. Sis might get something. Ak might get something. It comes out in different ways per season. But knowing Issachar and how he was, named already to be one that crossed between two burdens, to be able to rest between the two valleys, or between the two mountains, between the two dunghills, being able to sit there, but still even finding rest beside the one that directs the tilling of the ground, believe it or not, right? Even finding rest there. Let's go to chapter 3, verse 5. "Therefore, when I was 35 years old, I took a wife for myself, for my labor wore away my strength. And I never thought on pleasure with women, but owing to my toil, sleep overcame me. And my father always rejoiced in my rectitude, because I offered all first fruits through the priest to Yahweh." Right? So his father found joy in his work because every day he went to work and he fell asleep, and he did the right thing, basically. And it says, "And Yahweh increased 10,000 his benefits in my hand." And also Jacob, my father, knew that Elohim aided my singleness, for on all the poor and oppressed I bestowed the righteous things of earth, in the singleness of my heart. So even when it comes to your personal own salvation thing, but towards others. So every time you see the poor and oppressed in heart, you can bestow the righteous things of earth in the singleness of heart. So to be able to bestow the things that you see from children in nature, you know, or even the thing from seeing the mandrakes, he's, you know, a reference there. But be able to take that and give the righteous part of it to a person. You know, seeing where they are, you know, seeing yourself in that person too, you know, being able to give the righteous things in that moment. AYSAKHAR is basically telling you, you know, be a good farmer. You know the weather, know the ground, know the seed. You know, if it's thrown in thorny ground, or if it's thrown in stony ground, fertile ground, you know, or if it could be taken up easily by the wind, you could tell where somebody's at based off of how they're acting, you know, and you're able to see that because you have a relation that you're supposed to have to see that person in that moment. You know, nothing is vain. Nothing is vain. Even when you ain't got there yet, you still know that there's a getting to. You know, ain't nothing vain. Ain't nothing vain. And even there with that cough again, with the hands, I'm at the end of chapter 3, it talks about 10,000 fold. And in character, what you see is 10, which would be Yod or Yavad, right? That writes the direction of the Father. And it's multiplied towards thousands. So that's a when you look that up, it's more like the alive towards the thing or multiplied towards the thing, put against the thing, right? Yeah, discernment. And when it's multiplied, it's in the hands of AYSAKHAR. That's one kaf. In Jacob, Yaakov, that's the second kaf. And the last one would be Alachayim, the righteous direction. And those three things and those three characters, writing that out, you can find the increasing of 10,000 fold or tenfold, basically. In that sense too. Just some more character things. Let's see. And it says, and now listen to me, my children, and walk in singleness of your heart. For I have seen it in all that all is well pleasing to Yahweh. The single-minded man does not covet gold. He does not overreach his neighbor or what they're going through. He does not long after manifold delicacies. He does not delight in varied apparel. He does not desire to live a long life, but only waits for the will of Elohim. And the spirits of deceit have no power against him, for he does not look on the beauty of women, lest he should pollute his mind with corruption. There is no envy in his thoughts. No malicious person makes his soul to pine away. No worry with insatiable desire in his mind, or basically like an appetite that can never be filled. For he walks in singleness of soul, and behold all things in uprightness of heart, shunning eyes made evil through the error of the world. You know, like it says right there, shunning eyes made evil by the error of the world. Not even the thing that we do on purpose, but a thing that we now live in. You know, even down to the mandrakes. The mandrakes being a thing that look pretty trippy. You know, I ain't gonna hold you. Look pretty trippy. But bring forth fruit that still is able to be offered in due season. You know, still able to offer fruit in due season. Even the wheat and the tare, when there's a split and the falling away, they're both still offered. The dead things are still offered up, and the righteous things are still kept. You know, still offered up, still back to earth. Either one direction. You know, there's a purpose for everything. Even the dunghill, you know, or the compost pile. You just got to know where to put stuff. You got to know where to let it sit for over a season, so that way you can throw that soil for that lesson on top of here. Bam, I'm Gucci. You know, that's how it goes. And then you also show people how to do this too. You know, that's the best part about it for me. And also it's just a lot of source hurt. You know, SOURCE, source hurt. You know, I mean it's pretty much self-explanatory. That's really all it is. But if you tell a person that there's, take this with a grain of salt, but I realize if when you tell a person that there's one direct source to a thing, right, they'll take that and kind of get offended because you tell them after all this time, after all this problem, after all these issues, you're telling me that there's just one answer. I'm not trying to hear that. You know, that's where they're at. So when you can break things down into a root of a thing, or the farming of a thing, because everything is an agricultural walk, you know. Even the rod that Moses found was in the garden of Raval or Ruel or Jethro, you know. Everything's found on a mountaintop, you know, in a place that rains constantly. These mandrakes are in a place where it's a dry place, where that rain kind of subsides for a little while, you know. You're not getting that 40 days, 40 nights reset of mindset, you know. You're going through a little drought, you know. In that same drought, you find some Goliaths, you know. Um, Many Goliaths sometimes. David found a lot of them there, you know, even to his old age. But when you see that it all flows together, and you don't even have to tell a person where you started from or where you got things from. You just start talking about it, and then people just all of a sudden just listening, like, tell me more. And eventually you get to the day where they get to know the power thereof, you know, and not just stay with the form of Him, because we're all Him, you know. We're all Him in some little some little part and some great part, but as a whole, like, we're all Him. There's many righteous and many wicked. Many are meant to be righteous, and many just, hey, it is what it is. Some use the mandrakes for the righteous things, and some don't give the seed the fruit thereof of a thing, you know. Right, indeed, in His image. Yeah, look to the hills of Zadar. That's the hills of the seed. Everything's still got to be a mounded hill to, like, even when you plant a seed, just like that. You know, you're supposed to gather the dirt as like a mound on top so the water could trickle down properly. You know, that's just a salon itself. This is farming. You know, this is the way, as they say. Um, yeah, we're gonna finish out chapter 5. Yeah, therefore, my children. No, we didn't finish 4. So there is no envy in his thoughts, nor malicious person. Yep. Verse 6. For he walks in singleness of soul, and beholds all things in a brightness of heart. Yeah, that's right. Shunning eyes, made evil through the error of the world, lest he should see the perversion of any of the commandments of Yahweh. Lest he should see the perversion, so lest he should see only the evilness of, you know. I'm not saying that there's evil of the commandments. No, I'm not saying that at all. But they're to go against the thing that's missing the mark, the thing that's away from the Tav, right? So with that being said, perversion is the things that, all right, thou shalt not put no other thing before me. That being Yahweh speaking, right? That using that is taking that and saying, okay, well, I see this is a greater situation than anything Yahweh has ever tried to put me through, right? That's a perversion of any of the commandments. That's seeing the evilness of a thing, because there's righteousness and there's wickedness, right? So chapter 5, it says, therefore, my children, keep the law of Elohim and get singleness and walk in the godliness, not playing the busybody with the business of your neighbor, but love Yahweh and your neighbor. Have compassion on the poor and the weak. Bow down your back to farming and toil in labors of all manner of farming. So that means work the whole thing through, right? Offering gifts to Yahweh with thanksgiving. Abel also did the same thing. For Yahweh will bless you with the first fruits of the earth, even as he blessed all the saints from Abel, even until now. For no other portion is given to you than of the fatness of the earth, whose fruits are raised by toil. So nothing is given to you more than what's already there for you, basically. These things are already planted to be received or sieved again, or to be planted or be harvested, right? As this is a harvesting walk as well. These things are already planted in the fatness of the earth, so when you get to the certain points in life, these things come up. So those mandrakes were planted way before. We put that in that story. And when Reuben came across there with, you know, knowing that he'll get caught up in the trance of nature, right? Knowing that this will bring out mandrakes, knowing that this will bring out an issue over having children, demanding a reaction from Jacob, right? Jacob then having to see what's going on and give a direct command, right? Or direct advice. These things all coming together. Whose fruits were raised by toil or by a work of a thing, right? Verse 6, for our father Jacob blessed me with blessing of the earth and of first fruits. And Levi and Judah were glorified by Yahweh, even among the sons of Jacob. For Yahweh gave them an inheritance indeed. He gave the priesthood to Levi and the kingdom to Judah. And you must therefore obey them and walk in the singleness of your father, for it has been given to Gad to destroy the troops that are coming on Israel. We already talked about Gad. See how we talked about these things and they all flow together, which is really cool. Really cool. So we already know about Gad coming to destroy the troops because moving like that freight train, that Gadvat, that GD, that Gad, being two characters, not even being a name, but a sound, right? A sound that can be left at the waters or it could be put into AYSAKHAR. That sound being properly planted in the soil and rooted up in the fatness of the earth for the proper time when the toil is happening. You see how it all comes together? It's really, really awesome. Really awesome. Chapter 6. Therefore, my children, know that in the last times your sons will forsake singleness. Right? So in the last times, in those times where the rubber hits the road, the last times of perception, right? Not just the beginning of a thing, but the end of a thing. They will forsake singleness. They will forsake looking directly on the mindset, but that is part of the test, Part of the test is looking off the mark. We're not always going to be able to look at the mark. We're not in those bodies that just know one thing anymore, But what happens after that, right? Let's keep going. And will cleave to insatiable desires, or the desires that will never be filled. And leaving guilelessness will draw near to malice. And forsaking the commandments of Yahweh, they will cleave to Balaam. And leaving farming, they will follow all their own wicked devices. It seems like that's exactly what happened nowadays. Everybody left farming and followed their devices, right? Many different vices just to do the same thing. It's all farming. They talk about clip farming. Everything's farming. Everything's still farming, but yet we've gone so far astray. When the answer to it is just to go back to farming. It's written. And they will be dispersed among the nations and will serve their enemies. Those things that distract you. And therefore give these commands to your children, that if they sin, they may even more quickly return to Yahweh. Right? For if they sin, they may even more quickly return to Yahweh. For he is merciful and will deliver them, even to bring them back into their land being that proper mindset. Right? Last times equals today. Right? We could definitely insert that to today. Right? An end time of the extra of the nonsense, The one thing that's always a complaint is like not having things of your own, and sometimes that requires you to do it yourself. A lot of the times. But again, that goes even into this lesson again, or this study again. What is it that Yah has planted in there for you? What's that thing you haven't looked to in a long time? What's that thing that you've kind of been looking at, sitting on? Have you even let that marinate? One thing about my mindset is I know I can't start 15 different projects because I'm not going to finish not near one of them. But if I have 15 different ideas and work them one by one will work into the other, right? Just like it'll go right along with the birthing of the 12 sons of Jacob. Of the 12 more talked about sons of Jacob. We have others still too. And we have also this sister, But yeah, all this coming together. And yeah, we will finish that because this one's good all the way to the end. It's all good, but chapter 7. Behold, therefore, as you see, I am 126 years old, as you see, right? That was a little pun. And am not conscious of committing any sin. I have not known any woman except my wife. I never committed fornication by the uplifting of my eyes, right? Looking above the thing, right? You even remember in Alive where we talked about that vision? So that even brings another defining ITY, of that too, because like even looking up is looking off of the set, because you can see that's even kind of looking into a thing, not really looking up, but like not looking directly at it, but not looking off of it. Uplifting your eyes is lifting your eyes above the situation. Pretty much is what I'm getting to. Lifting your eyes above oh, that ain't even all that bad. Or, y'all would do it. That's one thing that I say all the time that I hear people say all the time. I say it too. You know, whatever it is, he'll work it out, and then I just won't look at it. But is that enduring the whole work of the thing? You know, if you don't look at something, can you really see what it really went through to rise? You know, can you see, like, okay, if you don't keep looking at a crop or a plant while it's growing, you don't see it withered here, even though it grew back up and everything like that. But there's something in that condition that if you put another seed right there, it's going to go through the same thing. And you could avoid that. That's what that is. Uplifting. Let's keep going. I did not drink wine to be led astray thereby. I did not covet any desirable thing that was my neighbor's. Guile did not arise in my heart. A lie did not pass through my lips. If any man was in distress, I joined my sighs with his. I shared my bread with the poor. I worked righteousness. All my days I kept truth. I loved Yahweh, likewise also every man with all my heart. So you must do all these things, my children, and every spirit of Bala will flee from you. And no deed of wicked men will rule over you. Nothing that happened before, nothing that happens now, nothing that's going to happen later. It'll be around you, but you won't be subdued by it, right? But you will subdue every wild beast, since you have the righteous direction, the alachim of the heavens and earth. So you have the righteous direction of the mindset and what we walk in. So you're able to grab something from the heavens and plant it into earth, literally, for your righteousness, for your doing, for your intent. There is power in that. But if we can reach for anything, we can literally plant anything we want to. Make sure we're reaching for the righteous thing. Because in that moment, what we reach for, we're going to get. We're going to get tenfold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold, right? We're going to get that. We're going to get exactly what we reach for, and we're going to receive it. We're going to reap what we sow. That's exactly what that means. Having the righteous direction of the heavens and the earth with you. Walk with men in singleness of heart. And having said these things, he commanded his sons that they should carry him up to Hebron, and bury him there in the cave with his fathers. And he stretched out his feet and moved on in a righteous old age, with every limb sound, with strength unabated, and he slept the continuous sleep, which is what that is, continuous sleep. So now, in closing, we're going to jump over here to Judges chapter 5 real quick. Read through there. And then we're going to close in Sirach, I believe, chapter 2, 3, something like that. Yeah, chapter 2. Sirach, chapter 2. Actually, going through these, make sure I went through all these tabs. There's one thing that I kind of glanced over with the mandrakes, right? Before we go to Judges chapter 5. Well, Judges chapter 4, we're going to read all the way through. It's Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. All right. It says, mandrakes have historically been associated with fertility, love, and conception, right? Fertility, love, and conception. We could rely on all those things, right? The things that are birthed from a passion of things, the things that are conceived or going with the sept or with the concept of a thing. Then it says, of course, modern science, blah, 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 right? But they're perennials, right? Mandrakes are perennials. And those that know about flowers, the perennials, that means something very, very, very deep about that flower, that mandrake. Perennials, they live for at least 2 years, right? Many can thrive for decades with proper care, but they're not annuals. So this isn't a thing that that always just. It's really not a thing or not a plant that just comes up and dies in the same season, right? It comes up, it keeps coming up, it keeps going away, it keeps coming up, it keeps going away. My mother had flowers in her yard. I don't remember what kind of flowers they were, but they're bulbs. Yeah, more so. And during the winter times, they'll bury themselves in, and then the next season they'll come back. The same plant in the same place, right? But you got to be able to see if you're doing the right things for that thing to keep coming back, because it keeps coming back in that same spot. So that means it's got to be tilled, it's got to be worked, it's got to have proper sunlight, it's got to have proper water. Mandrakes do not grow in places that are overwatered. That causes root rot. The heart of the thing comes from the root, right? But yeah, all that in that same spot. So if you don't do the right thing in that season, it's gonna come up again in a later season, and you're gonna have to be able to use that thing correctly. So even if you don't get it over with now, don't talk it out now, don't hear nobody out now, knowing that oftentimes, it's on us. We know the righteous place that a person needs to be at. So how else would a person see a thing if you're not first that thing? You know, um, we've got to be the example. That's really what it boils down to, honestly. Oftentimes I'll sit there and I'll try to not beat myself up, right? But keeping Simeon and Issachar in mind, the planting thing of the hands and in the blood, water, and spirit, I've read about, I've seen about, I've studied about, I've read circles around the same points that shows me where a person needs to be at in life, depending on where I meet them at, depending on how they abrased me, right? But yet my reaction sometimes that which is beneath the thing that I know that they need. So in that moment, it's on me. That's why repenting is a very, very, very deep thing. Walking this walk is a very, very deep thing, right? Yeah, exactly. Let your light so shine on their insecurities, but don't be like that. Don't be like that police officer that just has a light flash right in their eyes. Obviously we know we don't like that. So knowing that we feel safe around the person and showing them we feel safe around that person, let's just shine the feet at the ground so we can see where we're walking at, right? That's all. There's a better place to do things, but now we know that, right? We ain't like how that lesson shines so bright in our face, but we needed to see that so that way we're able to break it down in many ways. Like oftentimes with this, every time with this, it's it's just my life and how it applied to me. Gad being one of the ones that I think everybody, no, Dan, matter of fact, I think it was. Yeah, Dan, when that happened. But when I read about that, about perennials and plants, and that's something I know about plants now too, perennials. Those are the ones that come up. Um, they're not short lived. Year round gardens they're found in. But yeah, let's keep on going. Um, Judges chapter 4. Judges chapter 4. Some plants and trees will clone themselves annual or perennial. Yeah, there you go. All right, that's even a better way to go with it too. We use those same attributes and same qualities and the copy and paste. Come on. So yeah, we're gonna go to Judges chapter 4. Yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about too. Some more character. Judges chapter 4. Um, we're gonna talk about chariots. Chariots, and I know it sounds like something so far off from what we're talking about, but as we're reading and as we see where this comes in at, chariots. Imagine, like in the beginning where I had, boom, Issachar and the donkey, right? Being like Genesis 49 in that picture right there, right? So imagine in a chariot. A chariot leaves lines, right? A chariot leaves lines in the ground. How deep the lines are depends on how much pressure is in that cart, right? As we're building backwards. This is how I love how my mind works. So we have wheels that make lines. That sounds kind of funny. Wheels that make lines, but not really, right? But it takes something that constantly goes in a circle, that constantly loops around, that constantly must be a beginning and an end of a thing, right? To make that line. Now we're going to read in Judges where there's a point where this guy, he knocks out the chariot and must be put on foot, right? And on foot, this is where he goes off to a place, those that know, to a place that he is searching for water after battle. After losing a battle, he gets knocked off a chariot and goes on foot to the lesson of life where he really gets what he's deserving. Once he gets knocked off that chariot and put on foot. And oftentimes, even in the field, you don't want a chariot to divide the lines for the cropping and things like that. You want a tiller, or you want to have 2 oxen, or you might want to have a donkey, right? But then also at the same time, these same wheels that go around in circles and circles, they cause different indentations, different cuts in the ground for different purposes. Chariots hardly ever break the ground. Those things going in circles over and over again, right? These are the things that we can see with the underlying message, with that even in itself, right? So now let's go to Judges chapter 4. We're going to read through here, go through a little bit of Hebrew characters, and we're going to close in Sirach chapter 2, and that's about it. That'll be it for the day. So it says, and the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of Yahweh when Ehud or Ahvad was dead. And Yahweh sold them into the hand of Jabin, the king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, or Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles, right? And the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh, for he had 900 chariots of iron. In 20 years, he mightily oppressed the children of Israel. So we're going to stop first at that 900. A little bit of cool character for that, for those who want to dive in a little bit more. So we got chariots right here, right? 900. So we can see, just like in math, right? You're going to add up some things to get to a thing. So 900, we got 400 plus 300 plus 200. 400 representing Tav, which is a mark or a point at something. Then we got the 300, which is shine or sheen, which is the teeth or the chewing of something, or the grind or the destruction of something. And then we have Resh, which is 200, or represented by 20 as well. But that's again the head of a kingdom, right? That's again the process, the mindset, right? So when I was talking about the chariots, right, in that process of going around in a circle, we have Tav, Sheen, Resh. So there's a mark that you have to reach through, going through destruction for your mindset. That can go either one or two ways, right? We could break that down even more. So we got that 400 and that 300, those two biggest numbers, working from the biggest number down, working from the point down, working from Tav back to Alav, right? So we have 400 and 300. That's 700. 8, 9. So we break down, that's a Kof. And there's 2 Navans, which is 50-50. There's a going from one into another. There's a cut that has to happen to go from one mindset to another. That is a chariot. That is a thing that tramples. Even with horses, what did they do? What do chariots do? What drives a chariot? You do all these things and ask all these questions. That's how you break down Hebrew characters. So you can also see even more so how what's really involved in the thing. So you can keep breaking that down even more. You can go from the bigger number to the lesser number to the lesser number to break down even more what's involved in that, right? So what's involved in the Tav or the point going through destruction, there's a cut, a divide of your mindset towards your mindset, from one thing towards another. You see how it all walks together, right? Really cool. You know what I'm saying? So when thinking about chariots, right, implant that. There's a process of a mark, and it has to go through something. That's what a chariot does, right? Driven by horses that trample versus feet that tread, Yeah, even a donkey, you look at the stance of a donkey and the legs, right? And how it's not able to extend more so sometimes than the other ways. It's got more of a stiff walk, right? It can't really lift up real high and really stomp really hard, real low, like a horse can, right? But also just a chariot in a way, altogether. But that being a one thing. So when you see things in the Bible, be careful, not be careful, but remember to put everything together. as a complete image, as a complete ion, right? Because if you do, when you do, you really get the whole message of a thing and really see what's going on. So you can actually see, okay, when it talks about chariots, what's this process talking about? Or in my life, when I'm going through these things, it's like you can kind of feel a thing through a way of life. You could feel a thing through an experience of life. You could feel like something, you know. Yeah, low, slow, and steady. Exactly. That's what a donkey does. Staying low and slow and steady. Even when he runs, poor little guy. He thinks he's going so fast, but he knows decent stance, decent steps. Nothing too crazy, but low, slow to the ground. That's your proper stance, even for fighting. From the base, from the hips. When you swing the hips, you're not swinging your hips down. You're not swinging your hips back. You know, you're swinging them, alternate from one side to the other. But that's going really deep. But yeah, that's the chariot thing. So let's remember the chariot as we keep on reading through here, right? But yeah, that bottom part with the kof, right? Basically, without saying that to close that thought all the way together, when you got that quav, that navan, or that kof, none. When I got that equal sign right here, that's just an example. So to find that 4 and 3, that 700, just go through the Hebrew characters and find other ones that add up to that remaining 200, right? So in my case, I was like, okay, let's test that out with the quav and two navans. Does that equal what goes on in that chariot cycle, right? In that tav, seen, res? Yeah, that does actually. So you could put it together and keep it together like a locomotive, you know? So yeah, let's keep on going. Verse 3 of chapter 4 of Judges. Um, let's see. Yeah, verse 3. And the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh, for he had 900 chariots of iron, right? That's either iron sharpening iron, or iron also represents Roman Catholicism, actually, but romantic ways and things like that, right? And 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel, right? 20 years. 20 years also represented by, remember, Ras, right? So their mindset has been captivated by this process of necessary destruction, right? Or from seeing something in life, they saw something as vain, so now they ended up in this position, right? Or of this tav and this shine or shine, there has to be a cutting or a quaff of two different things to get you to your proper perspective, to get you to Allah. Remember that Allah of the vision. How we set that up, right? It says verse 4, in Deborah, remember her character, Deborah, Dalat, Alav, Bait, Resh. So from the door going through the proper vision to the righteous family for their mindset. So Deborah, the prophetess, the wife of Lapaidat, she judged Israel at that time, right? And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah. That says a whole lot right there. That says a whole lot. She dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah. So that must mean that she had her own, as we call it now, nation, right? Under the palm tree or under the branch. Palm tree also being palms, right? Or psalms. We could go through that avenue, or we could just go with the humility of the donkey, and how the Messiah rode the donkey, and they threw what, So under the palm, or under this direct, very direct name, very strong name, straight to the point. Like, ain't playing no games, as she didn't, as she doesn't. She dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethal and Mount Ephraim, or Ephraim, and the children of Israel came up to her for judgment, right? And she sent and called Barak, and son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh Naphtali. Okay, so we got Naphtali back in there, and said unto him, hath not Yahweh Elohim of Israel commanded, saying, go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with thee 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali, and of the children of Zebulun. All right. So we know about Naphtali already. The swiftness. We see Naphtali necessary again with Deborah, right? And called Barak. That also means blessings, right? Facts. Let me say that one. Yeah, yeah. See. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Um, and she sent to call Barak, or son of Abinaam, out of Kadesh or Kadash, like Ravak Hakodash. We can see that there. Barak Alam Sal Yahweh, blessings be unto, right? You see that there. Hath not Yahweh Elohim of Israel commanded you, saying, go and draw toward Mount Tabar, Tav. We see that Tav right there initially off the rip. All right, there's a point that got to be gotten to, right? We could throw that in there. And take with thee 10,000 men of children of Naphtali, 10,000. So we got 10 Yavad, the righteous direction of the Father, multiplied towards the head. The 1 times of something, the alav multiplied towards something, right? That's what we see there. And that is, and always is, Naphtali, usually, right? And that verse 7, I will draw unto thee to the river Kaishan Sisera, the captain of Jabin's or Yaban's army, with his chariots and his multitude, and I will deliver him into thine hand. Right? I will draw unto thee to the river of Kaishan Sisera. Kaishan Sisera, that was the bottom of that first page, what we saw right there. So in this character, where I was going with and seeing when I wrote this out was seeing, you think about a place of water, a river of water. So you go to the water to catch a drink, right? You go to the water to catch a drink from a stream, a river, a ocean, a sea, right? But here is dealing with a place of returning, a place of going back and forth. You're going here to approach a problem, right? And this is what comes from that in character. You see, we wrote that right to left. Again, that Kaf, Ayan, Sheen, Alav, Nun. So at Kaishan, you got the in the hands, right, with that wisdom and discernment, at the image of a thing, or at the water, which is a place where destruction for the vision to maturity is happening there. So Sarah, right, that is Samek. You can put an ayin there, or Yaud, which is the image of the righteous direction, one of the two, one towards the other. Then we have Samek, and then we have Resh again over there, right? So at that place, draw near unto thee the river of Kaishan Sisera. Draw near to the place of where you're going to have to use your wisdom and discernment in this place of where destruction is going to happen. Through a vision, it might seem like destruction, but there's something being handed over to you in this place. This will be wisdom. In this place where you're seeing something being planted, or there was a reverting, or there's a recourse or a discourse for a course to happen right here. This involves Deborah. This involves Barak. This also involves this water, Kaishan Sisera, right? We're going to keep on reading before we go any deeper. Put all this together. I will draw unto thee to the river Kaishan Sisera, right? So this is Deborah calling to Barak, right? And this is what she's saying to him. With this chariots and his multitude, right? We already talked about chariots. We already talked about that. So now put in multitude, the weight that's on that thing, right? And I will deliver him into thine hand. And Barak said unto her, if thou wilt go with me, then I will go. But if thou wilt not go with me, then I will not go, right? Her having the proper judgment. Deborah, that Dalat in the beginning of her name. The rest at the end of her name, right? If you're not going with me, I'm not going to go. So if I don't have that proper direction, your proper judgment, because righteous judgment did she have? Yes. He's not going to go. The blessing will not go, right? And also knowing that again, Deborah being, woman, or Ayazar, right? But being that, also that representing wisdom, right? And we'll read in verse 9 what we're talking about with that. And she said, I will surely go with thee. Notwithstanding, the journey that thou takest shall not be for thine honor. For Yahweh shall shall sell Sisera into the hand of a woman, right? Into the hand of wisdom. So Sisera, you got the Semek, Ayan, Semek, Res, right? Shall sell this process. So basically, this process will be brought over, or this process will be seen through. This process will be captive by, right? That's what we're talking about. The hand of a woman. So the hand of wisdom, the hand of the righteous door, right? Which is for the righteous house, or coming from the righteous house, of the righteous house, or birth the righteous, so just like Malakache. So the Malakache is like a woman ruler, right? We're going to use common terms because trying to go the extra ways is extra, right? So or some people say queen, right? But yeah, in this place, Malakache, this is where Deborah would be. She's in the ruling place. Malakache versus Malachi. Malachi being king, Malakache being a woman ruler or queen. That word goes many different ways. History on that word, but we're not there today. But that being the place, and literally birthing towards the head of a kingdom, towards a mindset of a kingdom, right? So that's where that's coming from. Shall be put into the hand of a woman. And Deborah rose and went with Barak to Kadesh, right? Kadash, or Barak ha Kadash, right? Holy Spirit. So we could keep all that in there too. I'm not saying that's Holy Spirit, but Kadash is in there. The Kaf, Allah, Dalat, shine or sheen. So in the hands, is the door. So in this place of wisdom, taking it to the place of wisdom and discernment, is taken to this door, which is where destruction is meeting at. And this is where Deborah and Barak went to. So knowing all these characters and things like that, it shows you the message that was being carried to what place, basically. So it shows you the seed that's being taken to plant into the ground. That's what's happening here. So when you break down the characters, you're looking for the seed, right? That's all that is. Yeah, judgment, Deborah, blessing, Barak. Yep, and Kadash being the place where all this comes together. Also, Kaisan being the waters that this comes to. So both of those starting with Kaf, but both of those being a place where you take your seed to wisdom and discernment. You see how it all comes together. In verse 10, and Barak called Zebulon. Now I'm gonna go into that next week. I believe. Yeah, next week. So we're not gonna go deep into that today. And Naphtali, we went through that already. Naphtali. And Barak called Zebulon and Naphtali to Kadesh, and he went up with 10,000. We talked about that, men at his feet. That's the righteous direction multiplied towards Allah. And Deborah went up with him. Now, Habar, the Kenite, which was of the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, right? Hobab, Jobab, father-in-law, many names at this point, right? Ruel, hold on one second. All right. Thought I heard somebody at the door. All right, so where was I? Oh yeah, Moses. Here we go. Verse 11. Entered himself from the Kenites and pitched his tent unto the plain of Sa'anaim, which is by Kadash, right? And they showed Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, was gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera gathered together all his chariots, right? 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river of Kishon. Yep, and Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river of Kishon. And Deborah said unto Barak, Up, for this day, this is the day in which Yahweh hath delivered Sisera into thy hand. Is not the Yahweh gone out before thee? So Barak went down from the mount of Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. And Yahweh discomfited Sisera and all his chariots. So discomfited, right? So took it from one place and put it to another, taking off of that chariot and put it to the ground, right? So that tells us there must come a place and time in life when we got to get taken off of our high horse. You know, got to get taken off or taken down from that place where we look at a thing. And again, like I was saying earlier, not seeing or forgetting that we know the thing that needs to be there. We know the presence, we know the elements, we know what's required, we know how much sun is required there, we know all these things, but yet we still stay on that chariot. We don't get down to actually till the ground, you know. Riding in that chariot can have us forget oftentimes where we're at, you know. Oftentimes the grounds that we're on at the same time. It can make us forget that we are riding on holy grounds. You know what I mean? At the same time. It says, Yahweh discomfited Sisera and all his chariots and all his hosts with the edge of the sword for Barak, so that Sisera lighted down off his chariot and fled away on his feet. Something happened here. To defeat utterly, discomfort. Oh yeah, that's even better. To defeat utterly, completely, completely off the chariot, and fled away on his feet. Verse 16. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth of the Gentiles. And all the hosts of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left. Howbeit, Sisera fled away on his feet to the tent of Jael or Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. For there was peace between Jabin or Yaban, the king of Hazor or Hazar, and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael went out to meet Sisera and said unto him, Turn in, my lord, turn in to me, fear not. And when he had turned in unto her into the tent, she covered him with a mantle. There's a whole lot of salah right here. Covered him with a mantle. And he said unto her, Give me, I pray thee, a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. We're going to stop right there. Water is not going to apply here. You know, right here is what's happening is a supernatural lesson happening in a natural thing. So we go from him being on a chariot, Sisera, this place of seed being planted and really seeing what's going on, right? But there's a place of where this is being traded off because of wisdom, because of proper wisdom and discernment, right? So Sisera is now off of the chariot that it was on in our life, right? We're saying it like that. Sisera is now off the chariot that was running rampant in our life, all over our grounds, all over our fields, stuff like that, right? So now he's on his feet. And on your feet, you get to be grounded with the world now. You get to be grounded back to where things really are, right? And this is where he learns his lesson, his life lesson that we were talking about way earlier when we started. His life lesson occurs here because now he's on his feet. Now he's going to get exactly what he deserves in a sense. He's going to reap what he sows, right? Let's keep going. He says he wants water. He's been in a chariot all day, and he wants water, right? Let's keep reading. And she opened a bottle of milk. He wanted water, and she gave him sincere milk. Right? The thing that would bring oftentimes a metaphorical stance to things like that. Right? And gave him drink and covered him. Verse 20, and he said unto her, stand in the door of the tent, and it shall be when any man doth come and inquire of thee, and say, is there any man here? Thou shalt say no. Right? Because at that point, there is no man there. There's a child that requires sincere milk. So that's oftentimes why we got to see things in the proper ways, because we're given the vision. We're given the Allah. We actually broke down how Allah actually shows the vision. A lot of times when people are asking for water, they just really want milk. But water is what the world gives. You know, we're going spiritual. We're not going too deep like that. But, you know, she opened a bottle of milk to give him exactly what he deserved. That's sincere milk. And then it says, telling him that there's no man here. If somebody comes to the door and asks, right? If somebody comes to the door and knock and asks if there's a man here, say no. Well, technically at that point, there wasn't. There's one that needed sincere milk. There's a baby in the walk, but that's okay. Not talking down on the baby in the walk, but, you know, Ya'al, Ya'ud, and then Al, the righteous direction of the Father. So the righteous hand of the Father, the righteous direction, which is the righteous direction of the Father. That whole thing right there, the meaning of the name brought the sincere milk, right? Verse 21, then Ya'al, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent and took a hammer in the hand and went softly unto him and smote the nail into his temples and fastened it into the ground. For he was fast asleep and weary, so he died, right? So those that know about Jasher, in the book of Jasher, it talks about Ishmael and Abraham, Abraham, right? And after many years, Abraham decides, hey, I need to go visit my child over here, right? I heard he's living right outside of these places, this premises, stuff like that. I'm gonna go visit him. Boom. He goes to visit him the first time on a camel, and he goes up there, and there's a woman in the tent, and he says, I'm thirsty, but basically she doesn't give him anything. She says, do you want me to leave a message for Ishmael when he gets back? He's not here. He's hunting in the field. He says, no. Just tell him that the nail is not good in the tent. The nail's not good in the tent here. Abraham leaves. She gives Ishmael the message. Ishmael sees that it's what his father is saying, knowing that, you know, his pops talks like Yoda all the time. He's like, all right, well, I now see that she's not the proper wife for me. Boom, he chooses another. Abraham comes back. Same thing happens. She instead gives him proper provisions and everything like that. Abraham says this nail should stay in this tent. With all that coming together, the nail stays with the tent. So in this case, there's a nail, there's a tent, and there's a hammer. So let's read that back over again. Verse 20 says, again, and he said unto her, stand in the door of the tent, and it shall be, when any man doth come and inquire of thee, and say, is there any man here? Thou shalt say no. Verse 21, and when Jael or Ya'al, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent being also Ba'ite, the righteous household, and took a hammer in her hand. Remember we talked about the nail and the hammer? How it talks about that Vav, that character Vav with the nail, the V on top of the stick, like a hammer and a nail, right? Being nailed to the righteous direction. We can see that there. And went softly unto him, you know, as this walk's required. Because, you know, if you walk in too heavy on a child, you know, we're going outside this situation. But if you walk in too heavy on a child, it could startle the child. It could wake the child up too early. It could get the child crying, so now the child no longer hears what you're trying to say. You know, but this comes from wisdom. Wisdom being the nail that holds up the tent. You know, wisdom being the nail, and the nail being the thing that touches the temple. You know, the mindset of a thing. Being able to see something, being able to see the purpose in everything. For nothing is vain. For seeing something is vain is taking his name, his authority in vain. That's the law. Not to take his name in vain. So with that being said, we can see how that's even reiterated here. Way after generations through generations through generations. Even when it talks about Psalms 22, when the Messiah Yehoshaphat, when he's on the top, and he's talking, and he quotes the 22nd Psalm. For those that knew what was going on, he would know, Alawai, Alawai, Lama Sabach Atanai. What he's saying is the 22nd Psalm. Not saying that he's been forsaken, but everything that's going on here is everything that's describing what would happen to, and that's everything that's happening in. So there's a thereof, a thereto, and a therein to everything. So don't get caught up in the thereof or the thereto or where you're at. But there's a there be. There will be to everything at the end of it, right? But let's keep going. That was a lot. Verse 22, and behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him and said unto him, come, and I will show thee the man whom thou seekest. So Barak also being blessing as well, right? Let's keep going. And when he came unto her tent, behold, Sisera lay dead, and the nail was in his temples. So Alachem subdued on that day Jabin, or Yaban, the king of Canaan, before the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel prospered and prevailed against Yaban, the king of Canaan, until they destroyed Yaban, king of Canaan. Right? And then Deborah sings a song. Right? We're going to start at verse 2. It says, praise ye the righteous direction. We're going to break it down like that. For Lord, Lord, capital, which is Jehovah, Yahweh, Vav, He, which is an action, right? I guess we do gotta go deeper on that, which is an action, which is what it is, which is the and that it is, right? Jehovah, which means the righteous direction of the Father and the Holy Spirit, the righteous way, is an action. What's often argued, oftentimes, is the name. But what was given in the beginning of time, even with Adam, was an action. So, there is proper character to describe proper action that was used in the originalities of things, right? But over time, these things are spoken of in different manners, and they apply to different people that have reached them and heard them in different places. So with that being said, give the baby some milk. So let's keep on going. It says, praise ye the righteous direction for avenging of Israel, when the people willingly offered themselves, right? Willingly gave themselves up. Hear, O ye kings, give ear, O ye princes, I, even I, or I, even to I, or Father, right? To praises to the Father, right? I will sing unto Yahweh, I will sing praise to Yahweh, Alachem of Israel, the righteous direction of Yahashrael. Yahweh, when thou wentest out of Seir, when thou marchest out of the field of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens dropped. The clouds also dropped water. So the earth broke apart and revealed what it should. The heavens dropped what they should in our time for us to hear. And the clouds also dropped water, which would be the revelation that comes in the clouds, right? Verse 5, the mountains melted from before Yahweh, even that Sinai from before Yahweh Alachem of Israel. So mountaintop to mountaintop, Zion to Zion, right? Of one mount of many places, basically. Which is what this is, what we walk on. One mount of many places. In the days, verse 6, of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Yaal, the highways were unoccupied, and the travelers walked through byways. So this is a whole lot of Salah in there. So the highways were unoccupied. The righteous mindsets, right? And the travelers walked through the byways, or the easy ways in and the easy ways out. Or the sheep that, or how else would you rob a sheep if you didn't hop the gate? That's the only way to rob a sheep. You know what I'm saying? So instead of going the narrow, some choose the wide, as in what that's saying. Verse 7, the inhabitants of the villages ceased. They ceased in Israel until that I, Deborah, arose, that I arose a mother in Israel. They chose new idols. Then was war in the gates, which is war in their mindsets, because of the idols that they chose. And there was a shield or a spear, right? 40,000. That don't just popped in. I think I'm still there. It said you are now live. I was like, I thought I've been live. But the 40, the mem, right? 40,000, 40,000. Where you at? Yeah. They chose new idols, then was war in the gates, a war in the mindset. Was there a shield or a spear? Asking the question among 40,000 in Israel. Was there a shield or a spear? Was there a cut or an accent? Was there a breaking of the ground, or was there a covering? Was there something coming out of the blood, water, spirit in Israel? Is there something that's going to stand that come out of this? Right. That's what the door is looking for. That's what Deborah is looking for and singing about. Right. My heart is towards the governors of Israel that offer themselves willingly among the people. Bless ye Yahweh. Speak ye that ride on white donkeys, ye that sit in judgment and walk by the way. Keep on thinking about that donkey in Issachar under the tree of rest, sitting beside two burdens, sitting between two burdens. Right, this is Issachar. Yes, verse 10. Speak ye that ride on white donkeys, ye that sit in judgment and walk by the way, they that are delivered from the noise of archers in the places of drawing water. So think about the spears and the arrows and everything hitting in the water. As it splashes through the water, you can hear the splash, right? Of each individual pitter patter of each arrow that hits the water, right? There shall they rehearse the righteous acts of Yahweh into those waters, right? Into those places, into those seas, into those the way things are given. You know, the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and the beasts of the field. So the birds of the air, those are those thoughts of the mind, the beasts of the field, the passions of the hearts, and the fish of the sea, the way these things move in different occurrences, you know, deeper rooted things, deeper causes, you know, the mandrakes of things, if you want to go there, since we went into that today, right? Even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his villages in Israel, then shall the people of Yahweh go down to the gates, right? After that. After the righteous acts rehearsing at the water of the arrows and the spears. Let's go to verse 12. Awake, awake, Deborah. Awake, awake, utter a song. Arise, Barak, and lead thy captivity captive, thou son of Abinoam. Then he made him that remaineth have dominion over the nobles among the people. The remnant, the mindset that stays there, that still lasted, right? Yahweh made me have dominion over the mighty. O Ephraim, was there a root of them against Amalek after thee? Benjamin, among thy people out of Machar came down governors. Out of Zebulun, they that handle the pen of the writer, right? They that handle the pen of the writer. That's deep. We'll get into that though. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah. So those ones that knew about the righteous planting of things and the ways of things like that were with Deborah, even Issachar and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley. He was sent on foot into the valley, as we all are, because that's where you meet the waters. The Kaishan Sayara. There we go. Saisara. That's what it was. For the divisions of Reuben, there were great thoughts of heart. Again, with Reuben and Rabban being caught with the trances of nature, right? Verse 16, why abodest thou among the sheepfolds to hear the bleatings of the flocks? Like why are you caught up right there? Just to hear the bleatings of the flocks? For the divisions of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. There was great things missing there. There was a great deep diving in the trances of nature there. But then asked, why abodest thou among the sheepfolds? To hear the bleatings of the flocks? Something that you don't already know about? You know? Verse 17, Gilead above Jordan. And why did Dan remain in ships? Asher continued on the seashore. Remember we talked about Asher last week. And abode in his breaches, in his territories, right? Basically, these are people that didn't go to war. Zebulun and Naphtali are people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high places of the field. So Zebulun and Naphtali, they risked their lives. Issachar, they did their thing. So now we can see right here, breaking down the character of Issachar, Issachar, Zebulun, and Naphtali. Breaking that down, that's definitely important because through this war, this is being sung about by Deborah, by through the door for the righteous house mindset. Sings about Issachar or Issachar, sings about Zebulun, sings about Naphtali, right? Verse 19, the kings came and fought the kings of Canaan and Ta'anak by the waters of Magidar. They took no gain of money. They fought from heaven. The stars in their courses fought against Sisera. The river of Kishon swept them away. That ancient river, thy river Kishon, O my soul, thou hast trodden down the strength. Then were the horse hoofs broken by the means of prancings, the prancings of their mighty ones. Remember, we talked about that too. Curse ye, Maraz, and said the angel of Yahweh, curse ye bitterly the inhabitants thereof, because they came not to the help of Yahweh, to the righteous direction, to the help of the righteous direction against the mighty. Blessed above women shall Yaal, the wife of Habar, be, the Kenite be. Blessed shall she be above the women in the tent. He asked water, and she gave him milk. Right? She brought forth butter in a lordly dish. Right? She made that thing happen. She put her hand to the nail and her right hand to the workman's hammer, who sits on the right hand of the Father. And with the hammer she smote Sisera. She smote off his head. And when she had pierced and stricken through his temples, and at her feet he bowed. He fell. He lay down. At her feet he bowed. He fell. Where he bowed, he fell down dead. So where he bowed at, when he was brought to a place where he had a choice to be, and had to make a choice to be, right? There he didn't continue on, basically, right? Verse 28. The mother of Sisera looked out at the window and cried through the lattice, or through the ladder, right? We can imagine Shrek. Through the lattice. Why is his chariot long in coming? Why tarry the wheels of his chariots? Her wise ladies answered her, yea. She returned answer to herself. Have they not sped? Have they not divided the prey, to every man a damsel or two? To Sisera a prey of diverse colors, a prey of diverse colors of needlework, of diverse colors of needlework on both sides, met for the necks of them that take the spoil. So basically she's saying, well, aren't they done like having fun with the spoils of war? Basically, like, haven't they been over there and defeated things by now? What's taking them so long to get back? You know, they should be over there. They're probably over there having fun and stuff, but shouldn't that have come to an end? I know they went over there and destroyed things. Like, what's taking them so long? Right? Verse 31. So let all thine enemies perish, O Yahweh, but let them that love him be as the sun when he goeth forth in his might. Like Sis was talking about. And the land hath rest 40 years. 40 years. Have rest 40 years. Well, how many years were they in the wilderness? You know? How many days and how many nights did it rain and flood? It's very poetic the way things are spoken in here. Very poetic. But just like the wife of Sisera, oftentimes that fallen spirit will sit there and wait for us to get back to it. Right? Don't go back to it. Don't go back to it. Once you get away from it, stay from around it. Stay from around it, or else you end up in the right back in the same spot, right? In a place of diverse colors, but getting caught up in the colors of things. Not seeing how they're all put together. Not seeing the message of the thing, you know? I'm going to read Sirach chapter 2 or Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, and then we done. Amar. Sirach chapter 2, if you want to turn there. Ecclesiasticus chapter 2. Oh. And then we'll be done. Of AYSAKHAR. Right? Let's keep going. So we're gonna close out here. This stuck out to me because of first off, I love Sirach. Love Sirach, love Ecclesiasticus. A lot of wisdom. A lot of wisdom in here. A lot. Really breaks down the process of what your mind goes through. Of what a thing is. What it is to be. Right? So we're going to read chapter 2. It says, my son, if you come to serve Yahweh, prepare your soul for temptation from many different ways, right? Set your heart correctly. constantly endure to the fullness thereof, right? And do not hurry in time of calamity. Don't hurry and miss something. Hurry up and miss, or hurry up and buy into something else. That's what that really means. Verse 3: cling to him and do not depart, that you may be increased at your latter end, at the end of things, right? Accept, ACCEPT, accept whatever is brought to you or brought on you, and be patient when you suffer humiliation. That's not just somebody saying, aha, laughing and pointing fingers at you, but, even in yourself, like, dang on, I could have done better than that. Or, man, I'm here again. I made it so far, but here I am right back in the muck of things, But be patient when you're suffering that, because that's imagine like a rapid flash slideshow. That's showing you rapidly everything that's here, everything you've been through, your choice, everything like that. But that doesn't mean this is what you get. This is what you got right there. You can still keep going, So humiliation isn't a stop and pause thing. Not to wallow in it, not to get caught up in it. Humiliation is a place of direction, right? You really can't even really go backwards. You just stay in that humiliation phase, or you go forward. Humiliation is separation from Abba. That's humiliation. I like that one the best. Let's keep going. For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of humiliation. That's where gold is tried, in the furnace of humiliation, when it gets really heated. So that backs that right on up. Put your trust in him, and he will help you. Make your way straight, and set your hope on him. All who fear or respect the righteous direction, who gives it up to the righteous direction, all ups to the righteous direction, right, to the Most High. Wait for his mercy. Do not turn aside lest you fall. Now that mercy is not just for a relief of situation. That mercy is for the latter end of a situation. What do you mean by that? It's that mercy is involved, but it's not really seen until the end of a thing. So mercy is not relief. Mercy is top, is the mark, is the place where Yahashua or Messiah is met there, where heaven met earth. That's where mercy sits, So mercy isn't the middle of a thing. That's the latter end of a thing, right? All who fear, yes, and your reward will not fail. All who fear Yahweh hope for righteous things. Let's go back to verse 7. All you who fear Yahweh wait for his mercy. Do not turn aside, lest you fall or fail. All who fear Yahweh put your trust in him, and your reward will not fail. Also, that's another interpretation of the name AYSAKHAR, the rewarder of men, or the reward of man, what man goes through to get a reward of, right? Very, very poetic. Very poetic. All who fear Yahweh hope for righteous things and for continuous gladness and mercy. Look at the generations of old and see, like we did today. Whoever put his trust in Yahweh and was ashamed, was there one? Or who remained in his fear and was forsaken? Or who called him and despised him? For Yahweh is full of compassion and mercy. So that means even when he called him, did he ever be like, what you even calling me for? Not in that sense. He's been to a place where he's like, hey, you should already know. Like, you're the leader of these people. You don't know why you even praying. You already know. If something went wrong, that means somebody did something wrong, i.e. Jericho. Let's keep going. He forgives sins and saves in time of affliction. Right? Woe to fearful hearts. I keep wanting to think about humiliation right there. He forgives sins and saves in time of affliction. We're on the line of processes, affliction and humiliation in comparison. Because he saves in one place and not the other. See where my mind kind of going with that? You see how he saves in one place and not really in another. There's humiliation, but then there's affliction. He saves in affliction, but you still got to suffer the humiliation because it's still not the end of a thing. But you still must sit in the, what does it talk about? The furnace, the gold, acceptable men in the furnace of humiliation. So there's a place where you must be set, but he saves you in affliction. So that affliction is a place where you need to be, right? You got to get that lash, and then you got to sit there with it because you got to remember what that is, the cause and effect. You don't really remember a lesson unless you remember the repercussions of the choice that you made in either setting. You know what I mean? So in that place right there, that's a great key word right there. There's a place where he saves you. He saves you in affliction. He gives you affliction, but he lets you sit in humiliation. But not humiliation as a thing of being embarrassed, but in the thing of the whole work. Don't make it not a fight. You got to endure the whole work, the whole process of the thing, the beginning to the end, the beginning to the ladder, right? There's a whole lot of planning. There's a whole lot of planning, and every time you farm, you don't stop planning. You know what I mean? It's a constant thing. Put your trust in him. You'll be able to see. You'll be able to see because everything will make sense. You know, you'll be able to understand everything because you're finally under his standard of how life goes. Everything has purpose. Verse 12: Woe to fearful hearts. God will get you in a place where you're lost, you're confused, you won't see a direction because you're fearful, you're caught up in a thing, right? And to faint hearts, those are the ones that make it not a fight. I mean, make it not a fight. When you sit in that burnt, it has a scar that reminds you exactly. Yeah, facts. It has to have something that reminds you. That's all it is a reminder. You know, oftentimes when these words are given and stuff like that, it those things off. You know what I mean? Um, that's why we got to study to show ourselves approved. Have that righteous counsel with you, so you're able to see what things are really saying. You know, that does involve character. Like that's the thing about going through character. You can't say that there's anything that you can't figure out. There's the equation for it. But let's keep going. Woe to the faint heart. Oh wait, woe to fearful hearts, to faint hands, and to the sinner that goes two ways. Faint, fearful hearts, faint hands, that wisdom and discernment on that cough, right? Or the hand, the righteous direction of the Father, you know, at that same time too. Woe to the faint heart, for it does not believe. Therefore, it will not be defended. Fair enough. It does not believe, so it therefore won't be defended. Woe to you who have lost your patience. And that will you all do when Yahweh visits you. So in those times where he gives you these things to see, to be seen, be thankful that, be thankful to be seen. You feel me? So when he gives you these things, just know that he's visiting you. You know, he's in these situations, he's giving you, he's surrounded you. You know, that's the point we were digging to. Dig. He's surrounding you. You know, when a situation comes to you, you are succumbed or circumferenced by the situation. That situation circles you. You know, there are mighty chariots too. You know, they all do their work, but that literally encompasses you. That's beautiful. You know, he's putting his hands around you, literally, in this situation, which is all is in his hands. He works it, he makes it, he shapes it. He's looking at you inside of it. It's like playing pinball. You know, in that arcade game, you just pull it and then just watch the ball bounce around. You know what points you're supposed to hit, but will the ball always hit it? No. You know? But not saying that we're a pinball. You know, sometimes in my life decisions, I've looked like a ball in the pinball machine, for sure, for surely. But that wasn't my final outcome. That was just the humiliation of it. You see? So it all comes together. Well, let's go. We're going to finish this off. It says, those who fear Yahweh will not disobey his words. Those who love him will keep his ways. Those who fear Yahweh will seek his righteous pleasure. That's through all. Those who love him will be filled with the law, which helps. Those who fear Yahweh will prepare their hearts, right? And will humble their souls in his sight. We will fall into the hands of Yahweh, ain't it though? And not into the hands of men. For as his majesty is, so also is his mercy. Grace for ignorant, mercy for the guilty. Yep. Yep. Yeah, we do. We do for sure. We do get beat by like a pinball for sure. But yeah, that's it for today, fam. I believe that's about it. I'll go through my notes a little bit, but yeah, this has been AYSAKHAR. We said his name a few times, right? But this is AYSAKHAR. The image. Also to be an image, right? To be that one, the donkey, like, right? We know what word it says, but the donkey, like, to be the one son that's given an image, right? An image that sits between two burdens, good and bad, wickedness and evil. You know, it's the brain between the two ears. You see what I'm saying? And this is the one that was born amongst many things going on in Kemet, a lot of wickedness. Again, another pagan guy came up in there. Laban, living in the land of Laban, a lot, a lot. LA, the backwards form of AL, you know, a lot of that going over there. But still being in the proper place to be a message. And Jacob still seeing that, the Yakab, the works of the hands, still being able to see. And then the Kaf being in AYSAKHAR, the one that's known for discipline and wisdom, for knowing the world and what's going on, and oftentimes an advisor sometimes too. Definitely one that stayed with the works of Yah. You know, in the promised land, they were still settled in on the waters of the shores and things like that, but planted things and brought out righteous fruits. Versus Asher, who kind of stayed there, you know, but then not forgetting about good old Anna, you know, she was one of the ones that was there from the beginning in that 400 years of silence, right? Where a lot of people left. That's where we're coming from. We're coming from that, and we came to AYSAKHAR. And everything we learned today about the farming and everything like that, comparison to and watching the line of things from Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Naphtali, Dan, Gad, so on and so forth, Asher, AYSAKHAR, right? How all that goes through is literally like being in the bag. We in the bag. In what bag? The bag of Jacob. You know, getting in the bag. That's the vision of what the handwork does. You know, and that being the echo of the scroll. Especially really, really after that, a lot after that. Even some correlations in the disciples and the sons of Jacob. You know, the daughter of Jacob, the adopted in sons. You know, even so too. Yeah, all this comes together. All this come together. Yeah, the muscle memory, facts. Facts. Only for a moment, exactly. Praise y'all for repentance. Yep. Yeah, the weight holds muscle memory. That's facts. Muscles hold weight memory. Like when you're working out and stuff like that, you get to do a repetition of things, and it's like your body knows where you left off at. But if you don't keep working on it, you get left off somewhere else. You know what I mean? But yeah, let us pray. Whoever this is received well is automatically already posted up here, so we're Gucci on that. We're gonna pray it out and enjoy the rest of this Shabbat. We're gonna work this out somehow. Somehow. When Big Buddha is ready and land to like that, we'll probably just hop from here to TikTok type of thing. But it's just way easier on here. Way easier on here for the live sessions and stuff like that. But later in the future, probably still be logged in on TikTok and let that run or whatever, but really be concentrated over here. I can do a lot more on here. honestly. But in the future wise too, seeing how y'all, as I'm sitting in it, you know, being able to sit in anxiety and wanting to put your hands on everything, that to let things bloom and blossom naturally over time. That's the goal. That's the purpose. You know, I don't say this to be messed up, but Jacob put his hands on enough. Jacob put his hands on enough to give us the guidelines of life. You know, so all we gotta do is just read, study to show ourselves approved. But let us pray. Abba, Yah, Yahweh, we come before you to just say to die for another righteous lesson, another great time to dive in and really sit in the essence of what you really mean, you know, and what you left behind, how it's so perfectly pieced together for our peace. It's so perfectly planted for our gain, you know, for our harvest. At all times and all seasons. Like how great is that for every season, every moment, there's something there for you, for us, from you. We can open our eyes and look, we can close our eyes and think, but there's something there in that moment that we can choose from in every moment of life, and that's what we're grateful for. We're grateful for that for sure. To die for another day, to rest in you, to continue rest, to die for family, safety of family, for the duration of this, for the concentration, for the chill vibe, you know. To die, Abba, for all that, for you're greater, and you continually will be. Hashem Yahweh, Hashem Yahashpai, Hashem Rabak HaKodash, Aman, Aman, and Aman. Yeah, you too, pretty. Yeah, facts. Facts. Um, yeah, all praises, all praises. Also, those that like the blanket in the background, Big Buddha hooked me up greatly, greatly appreciate it. Great gift, sir. I do appreciate it. And up there in that top left corner, you got that spray up there, that spray. Yeah, that stuff works very well for my locks and stuff like that. But root creation, so got people doing their works. There's also some knitting and some clothing and stuff like that going on too. Many different avenues. So yeah, reach out. Just being led to just say stuff like that. For those that are doing their works and stuff, you know, part of this coming together is being outside of what people even can call income, to be in the system but not of it at the same time, you know. And people do great works. I've seen it. So why not talk about it? Everybody talking about it. And of course, can't, you know, got to shout out no strings, you know. And as these are just like, for example, these are babies, right? That are being taken care of and birthed for the kingdom and stuff like that. So take care of yours, whatever that is, whatever that is. When you got it, send it up. You know, just there's some space on the wall over there. Put a sticker up or something over there. I don't know. You know how these things come up, but yeah, stay in rest in between those two burdens and let Yah figure it out. Don't be vain of mind. Don't let Yah figure it out. Let you be figured out through Yah. You know, because he already knows where he needs you to go. Just go there. Just go there. Right, exactly. Right to the storehouse. Right to the storehouse. Doing great things. Great things. Greater things too. Um, even with the homeless and things like that, there's a lot of stuff going on that's just righteous. It's awesome actually. More stuff to be coming from that as well. But enough of that. Enough of that. Shabbat shalom, fam. Shabbat shalom. The Big Buddha goes on later. I'm sure we'll share the link and stuff like that. I'm gonna continue to rest. I'm enjoying this vacation for sure. Go back to the tour on Monday, but been able to rest. You know, been able to go inside my cocoon and really, you know, hone in on what Yah has. You know, something like this, even so, too. You know, had a chance to clean up. You feel me? Catch up on clothes. You know, there's some little things that make you feel so good. You know what I'm saying? But I even take that skateboard out. I ain't nothing too crazy. It was actually gifted to me. I have a friend, a brother. You know, is a pretty decent, pretty known skateboarder over there in the islands and stuff like that. So, be blessed with that skateboard. That's to say chocolate on it. It's actually pretty lit. But yeah, different things. You know, little things that you still love to do. You know what I mean? But go easy on the kid. Yeah, facts. More like a stand and stride type of thing. Oh man, but Yeah, all praise, all praise. Enjoy life, enjoy life. Get that nature in too. Get that nature in too for sure. Get that grounding in, grounding. I've been dodging the heat. It's been extremely warm over here. It rained. It's been raining though. Yesterday, last night it rained, and some other night here recently it rained too. But really been on this vacation of really honing in on day and night. Just it's day and it's night. That's what I've been on. So I haven't really been keeping up with the days too much. I knew what the day was, but I haven't really been keeping up. That was one of my things. Y'all was like, hey, you're not even paying attention to that. So sorry if I missed anybody. But I'm out of the cocoon now, so I'm able to talk more. But yeah, just like that. Let y'all lead. Go where he has you to go. The real will understand. You know? Get yourself together. Stay together so we can be together. Yeah, see y'all's handiwork for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I think on this line to cut off at some point in time, but it's good that it kept going. I reckon, because I'm looking at it's like 30 minutes. I know I've been talking for longer than that. Feels like it, But all praises, all praises, all praises. But I think I'm done. I think I'm done chatting now. But yeah, next week, same time, same channel, 3 p.m. we'll start. Roughly maybe somewhere around there, maybe a little before. Definitely not after y'all willing. But yeah, and if you got any music, also as well, learning about stuff over here, it can't be anything copyrighted. Can't be anything copyrighted. It has to be copyright free, or I have to have permission to use the music. So whatever that means, they'll mute stuff and stuff like that. So those that have musical gifts and talents, send something through an email or something like that. We can figure out permissions and things like that. And whenever, but yeah, I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this day. Shabbat shalom, fam. Shabbat shalom. Till next time. Peace.